audio and video conference and special board meeting and budget workshop meeting of the Harlingen CISD Board of Trustees. This meeting has been posted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. We do have a quorum, and at this time, I will ask Sonia and Dr. Cavazos, do we have any public comments?
There are no public comments signed up.
Okay, there are no public comments. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll jump into our first item. Consider and take possible action to approve application by the district to the City of Harlingen in connection with the sale of district's property located at 905 East Tyler, Harlingen, Texas, seeking abandonment of and/or a license to encroach on the alleyway between the two parcels involved in the sale and delegate to the superintendent the right to make such request and execute all documents related to such request. Mr. Cavazos, Julio, would you please present this item?
Thank you, Dr. Perez, Dr. Cavazos, board members. So as you know, we have the old Gordon Nicks under a sales contract. The buyer's working with the city, requesting the district to sign off on some planning and zoning forms, which is pretty much a right-of-way for abandonment of a piece of property. Let me share this screen with you. So can you see that?
Yeah.
So this is the Gordon Nicks building that we have there. This is the parking lot. Right there was the old athletic office. So there's this right of way that the city used to use to go in there and pick up the garbage. The buyer is requesting for us to request a right of way of abandonment for this piece of property, so they can proceed with their due diligence and doing what they're doing to try and close out on this property. I did talk to our realtor and our attorney, and they said that's something that is doable. It does require board approval, so we're certainly recommending that we allow the superintendent to sign those documents.
Any comments, questions from the board? And if not, I'll entertain a motion, but we do have time for questions or comments.
I'll go ahead and make a motion if it's appropriate.
Please.
I move that we approve the recommendation of staff to abandon that alleyway.
So we have a motion by Mr. Powers, and I believe a second was already by Javier. Was that right, Javier?
Yes, I thought Greg had already done the motion. I'm sorry.
Oh, we're going to go ahead and give you credit for that, Dr. Reininger. Are you okay with that?
Of course.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Powers to proceed as directed, as presented by Mr. Cavazos, and a second by Mr. Dalion. Any further questions? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay.
Aye.
Motion carries. At this time, we'll move into our budget workshop. Mr. Cavazos.
Hold on a second, I'm sorry. Yeah, let me share this document here with you. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
So this is our first budget workshop for fiscal year 2021, and these are estimated revenues and appropriations that I'm going to go over with you all.
You probably have to increase the image size.
Can you see that?
Yeah, but there's two screens coming up at the same time.
Okay, well let me.
Not too well.
Right there. You're good.
Increasing the size doesn't increase the dollar amount, unfortunately.
Right.
Is
You're
that
good
fine?
now, Julio.
Okay. Okay, so these are the estimated revenues and appropriations. Again, this is very preliminary numbers. We just got our appraisal preliminary taxable values Friday, so these are pretty preliminary numbers. But again, we for this year, we look at our total local revenues projecting about $43.1 million, and we'll go over that here in a little bit. State revenues at $16,988. projected revenues about $140.6 million, and some federal revenues that we have projected about 4.8. So the total estimated revenues for this fiscal year 2021 about $188.5 million. I do want to go over a couple of these estimated revenues. This is a little bit more of a recap of how we get to those type of revenues. The total local revenues again projected about $43.1 million. In 2019-20 budget, we had budgeted $42.3 million for this current fiscal year. We're projecting, that we're gonna realize about 42.5. So pretty much in budget with that line item that we budgeted for local revenues in this fiscal year. Our state revenues, and we base our budget on 17,125 average daily attendance, which translated to about $138.8 million. And we're very conservative on the state revenues last year because of the implementation of House Bill 3 and some new funding. So we're conservative. Our actual ADA for this year is going to be around 16,900, a little bit lower than what we budgeted for. But the revenues that we're going to realize are going to be a little bit more because we're conservative on that budget that we had last year. So total estimated projected state revenues for this year about $141.3 million in projected state revenues. Federal revenues, we budgeted 5.3. Probably going to realize about 4.5. So our total federal revenues is about $4.5 million. Total estimated for this year, $188.8 million in projected revenues to be realized. We budgeted 186.5, so a little bit over $1.5 million more than what we actually budgeted. And for 2021, we're projecting $43.1 million in local revenues, and I'll go over the tax rates and the taxable values here in a little bit. 16,900 average daily attendance. Total projected state revenue about $140.6 million. Budgeting about $4.8 million in federal revenues. So our total estimated revenue is $188.5 million. You go back to this page, and that's where this 188 is, right there. So, and please ask questions as I go through this if you have any. On our property tax revenues, again, we just received the preliminary tax roll from the appraisal district. I went ahead and adjusted that downwards to where I think we're going to be. So last year we were about $3.8 billion in property taxable value. This year, I'm thinking we're going to be about a little bit over $4 billion in property taxable values, which is about a 5.3% increase. The state has another compression in our tax rate this year. So and they're not going to give that actual number until mid to late June, but it's going to be about 1.2 pennies less than what we currently are now. So we're projecting to have a total tax revenue, total tax rate of about $1.19.27. Here's the M&O. Last year we were 106.84. We're projecting maybe it's going to be at 1.0547, a reduction of a little bit over 1.4 pennies. On the interest and sinking fund, which is the tax rate that we use to debt, because we're refunding, the current debt, we think we're going to realize maybe about, 3/4 to a penny reduction in that. So that's another penny reduction. So we might be in a position to reduce our tax rate by maybe 2 pennies this year. So one of the things that we're doing this year, we're being conservative in the projections because of the current situation with the COVID-19 crisis and the economy now, and as we move forward to next year and even the following 2 years, we have estimated typically we estimate about 98% collection rate for our taxes. We were a little bit more conservative this year, about 96%. It's still going to give us, a little bit over, almost about $1 million more in local property tax revenues than we had last year. So we're projecting about $40.1 million in property tax revenues for maintenance operation. Last year we were at 39.3, so still an increase of about $800,000. In debt service, about $5.2 million. In property tax, last year we were about 5.4, so that's a little bit less because of the reduction in tax review. One of the other things I do want to point out is the new construction that we had based on the preliminary values. We have, average, $40 million, 45 in 16, 17, 79 in 17, 18, 55 a couple years ago. Last year we were $74.7 million in new values hitting our tax roll. This year is about $66.5 million that the President District is projecting. 34.9 is single family housing. $4 million is multifamily commercial, about 25.4 million, and other about $2 million. So that's a pretty good average increase in new values into our tax roll. This is the preliminary values that we got from the appraisal district just last Friday. Again, they're projecting a total net taxable of about 4.3, which is about a 10.5% increase from last year. But these are preliminary values. It's going to change. There's still the appraisal review boards that reviews those items. So we know that those numbers are going to change, and we think if they're going to go downward, probably end up with a little bit over 5% increase. We'll get another update sometime in May from the appraisal district, and then they certified the values in July. Again, these are the new values to the tax roll. So again, the new values that I come up with, on this other spreadsheet right there. So we go back to page number 2 there, or number 2. Again, our total estimated revenue is $188.5 million. So we begin with last year's appropriations of about $186.7 million, and we add any new items into our budget this upcoming year. Right now, the preliminary staffing guidelines, we have a net reduction of about 100. Yes.
You went to mute real quick. We're gonna.
I did.
Hold on.
Still showing that he's live.
Did you hit the button, Julio, by mistake?
Okay,
No,
now.
I heard everything, guys. He never went to mute on our side.
Can anybody else?
Everything as well.
I heard everything as well.
Yeah,
Dr. Perez, can you?
maybe this thing turned off at the top.
I mean, I haven't turned off anything.
Oh,
I heard Julio uninterrupted.
we're good. We're good, Julio.
Good. All right. So we begin, with the appropriations. We begin with last year's appropriations, and then we add any new items that we have this year. Staffing guidelines, an adjustment. Right now, we're looking at maybe having a net reduction of about $145,000. And Deb Scoggins is working with the campus administrations and departments and still fine tuning those numbers. Veronica talked about our digital divide and trying to bring that online. So we're actually out for bids on technology devices. We're going to get some bids in on Thursday to better have a 1-to-1 ratio up to 75% of our students. What that's going to do to our budget is we're going to have to budget some an additional $500,000 for a lease, that we're planning to do on these devices. We're going to use some existing dollars that we have in our technology budget. We budget about $750,000 per year in technology. We're going to use that $750,000 plus this $500,000. So that lease is going to be maybe about $1.1 million before it's all said and done for about 4 years. But new into our budget, because we're using that existing technology budget, we're going to have to come up with an additional $500,000, to bridge that digital divide with our students.
Julio, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
On the, what are you estimating your student population at next year?
16,900. Right there. And so we're being.
He's asking about student population,
Estimated student population.
not ADA.
Yeah, the student population is going to be about 18,000. I mean, that's the estimate, which is about 150 less than this year. So it's going to be around there, about 18,000, maybe 18,100 enrollment wise. But we get funded on ADA, so that's what I use for our funding.
And what's our ADA last year?
17,125. And
Thank you.
this year is 16,900, so I'm using the same number as we had this year.
Thank you.
Okay, so back on the technology, the leases, again, new to the budget, $500,000. Some savings. Remember, we signed that contract, to enter into with a new retail energy provider about 6 months ago. Well, it starts June the 30th, July 1st. So we're going to realize about a $200,000 annual savings on electricity because those rates were a lot lower. We're also looking at possibly adding some security guards to our elementary campuses. And that's an impact to our budget, about $425,000. Looking at doing a GPS tracking system for school buses. That we're going to be looking at that here pretty soon. So we estimate that that's going to be an impact to our budget, about $300,000 one-time cost. Total appropriations with those new items, about $187.6 million. That leaves us a surplus of $943,000. Have a little bit of money there set aside for health insurance, about $500,000, maybe a possible increase. Leaving us a surplus currently right now. Again, these are preliminary numbers. They're going to change as we move forward. $443,274 with our preliminary budget here. Any questions on any of that?
Julio, I do. I guess I know this is the preliminary. This is the very first one. So what we're looking at is all we have to move forward with is going to be $443,000. So, and that's not including. I see that you have salary increase proposed. So whatever that's going to be, we're going to have to take from some of the line items up top. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And yes, I mean, again, these are preliminary numbers that we're projecting. There's, and possibly if our health insurance looks a little bit better than where we are now, maybe this $500,000 might not be $500,000, might be $100,000, $200,000. If we look at the security guards, and if there's a way to fund those differently, maybe that 425 might come down half if we find out, that we can use half from federal grants, right? So these are preliminary numbers. Right now we're at 443. Yeah, and it's going to change, so we're still fine tuning that. But as of right now, that's what we're looking at.
And my second part of that question is kind of a follow up from Greg's question. Have we gotten any direction from the state in terms of, because it's 16,988, but it's also based on the attendance, them being on a campus.
Right.
So how is that going to work? Because with everything that's happening, that could plummet.
So absolutely. I mean, so the state and the TA commissioner have allowed us to do the average for this year, the first 4-6 weeks. Plus, they'll factor in some historical data from the 5th and 6th weeks from previous years. So as we go into next year, there'll be some changes to how we calculate 88. And the state and TA being very flexible in trying to accommodate school districts with that ADA that they're typically used to having from year to year. So if we go back to virtual learning, I'm sure that they'll give us credit for ADA for that type of learning. So there's always those changes, and yeah, we anticipate there's going to be even more as we move forward.
Thank you.
So, but that's important to keep in mind that ADA will change. So a couple other things that I do want to go over with the board is some historical data and some graphs. So this is the statement of revenue and expenditures and fund balance for the past 5 years. What we're projecting for this year, starts 15, 16, and then what we project here, what we had last year actually. And this is what we're projecting for this fiscal year, June 30th, 2020. We're projecting our revenues to be about $178.3 million. And one of the things I took out, I wanted to separate the TRE budget from this, and I have it down here. We'll go over that in a little bit. But for projected revenues, we're projected about $178.3 million in projected state and local and federal revenues. Projecting to have expenditures of about 176.5 revenue over expenditures, about $1.8 million for this year. We did, have an operating transfer, and this is the lease on those buses that we have. So we have to take that into consideration. So net revenue over expenditures about 3.5. We add that to our beginning fund balance of $40,094,000. So our ending fund balance that we're projecting right now is about $43.6 million. Out of that, some of that is restricted. We still have that those construction bonds that we use to finance the school health professions, that we set those monies aside every year. So that's going to be due payable in year 20 of that note, and we're 5 years into it. So we have set aside about $3.9 million for that payment. So it brings our total unrestricted fund balance projected about $39.7 million, which is pretty good, healthy fund balance to have as of right now. The TRE, we wanted to separate this TRE activity over the past 5 years, which we started in 15-16. We put in $10 million into TRE funds. We spent about 3.9 that first year because it was we received those monies. The voters approved it in September. We didn't start the activity until probably January of that year. So the net revenues and expenditures for that year was about $6 million that we carried over to the next year. So the following year we had another $10 million in revenues. We spent about $11 million there, and then so net revenues over expenditures 1.4 more expenditures and revenues, but we had that $6 million that carried over right there. So the net ending balance for TRE for that year too was $4.6 million. Then we take that 4.6 and bring it over to the new year. That year we had $20 million of revenues, because that's the year that we put that maintenance tax note there as well. So that's $10 million more. So that's $20 million. We spent 14.5. Net revenue over expenditures $5.4 million. We add that to the beginning fund balance. So that gave us an ending fund balance in TRE of about $10 million. Carry that over to the new year, which was 18-19. There's that $10 million. Again, we put in another $10 million. We spent about 10.8. Net expenditures over revenues $879,000. We subtract that from our ending fund balance. So we had a $9.2 million fund balance in TRE as of the end of last year. We bring that forward this year. Again, there's that 9.2, another $10 million we contributed. We're going to spend about $15 million this year in actual expenditures. So there's a reduction of $5 million. So our total ending balance in TRE, as of June 30th, 2020, it's going to be about $4.2 million. Do you follow that? So every year we're carrying over, but there's some projects that we currently have that we still need to pay out. So we're going to be using most of that TRE fund balance as we move forward. So the total general fund balance that we have is 43.9, which is this 4.2 plus this $39 million right there. Any questions on that?
I have one. So the long-term plan that we have on the TRE, how we're spending, because we have a strategic plan how we spend the money every year. Is this upcoming year the $4,231,000? Is any of that going to be used for because of the COVID?
No.
Are we changing the direction of how we're using the money on the plan?
Yeah, not on the TRE budget. The TRE budget, we have the early college high school that's coming up, this upcoming year, which is about $7 million that we have there, plus some additional costs that we're projecting out. But the majority for the TRE is going to be the early college high school.
So
Phase two of TRE Treasury.
Yes.
yeah, so I think it's very important we keep TRE separate for what we always told the voters we would do with TRE. But it's an excellent question, because I was going to ask that question, Javier, in a slightly different way for Dr. Cavazos and Julio, in that as we will have increased expenses as a result of COVID, whether it's technology, there's going to be some capital, some one-time capital outlays and expenditures because of COVID, without a doubt. I guess my question to y'all is, how are y'all looking at that? Are y'all looking at that in just taking it from the operational budget, or because our rainy day fund, if you want to think about it, is our unrestricted fund balance up here. So that's our rainy day fund. So that's another option. Javier, I guess, it's a good question because if there's another option than just taking it from the operational budget, which then limits you on other things because now, you're limited because, you may not have enough for pay raises, for example, things like that. And so another way to think about it is, do we tap into our rainy day fund, which is our unrestricted fund balance? It's a question for you guys because this is where you guys are experts on this. Have you all thought much into that?
Well, I'll start by saying that right now the expenditures that we're making on COVID-19, some of them will be reimbursed, right? But that's far in the future. Some of it will not be. So our goal is to make those expenditures one-time expenditures from the existing operations budget. But to give you an example, when we had Dishman flood in Wilson and Vernon, we put all that money up front to fix those campuses. We just received about $590,000 of reimbursement for that cost. And so that 591 wasn't built into the budget, but it's being earmarked for this new pandemic to see what are the things that we need to do, because right now there are several things that we're looking at that are going to be one-time expenditures, and I'll give you some examples. We are doing a survey of all our soaps, availability in all the bathrooms, looking at what we're going to need in case we bring kids back, looking at our water fountains, indoor water fountains, because kids are not going to want to drink water from the spigot there at the water fountain. So we're looking at refillable bottled water fountains. So all that's going to have a cost because we're going to have to get ready for a very different type of a school system. And so to answer your question, Dr. Perez, we are starting with the current operational budget because keep in mind that the fact that we're close to 2 months, there's also some savings that we're recovering for that. There were no field trips, no extracurricular activities. There were a lot of things that did not happen as a result of the fact that we're closed. So we're going to try and do that, realizing that we may have to come to the board and tap into the rainy day fund, as you put it. But we want to be very conservative and very responsible in what we're doing expenditures for.
So Javier also brought up another excellent point in that, we're hearing and we're seeing more and more evidence of the state already putting out warnings that they're going to be asking state agencies and everything else to constrict their budgets for the next session because of what's going on with the taxes and everything else. Foreseeing the sales tax going down and them not being able to collect the taxes, and the worry that a lot of oil companies in the shale and in the other areas may not even be able to pay their taxes, etc. There's all kinds of concerns going forward that really put a strain on the next session's budget. But I guess from what I'm hearing, you guys, the thinking right now with public schools, am I correct in saying that the thinking is they're going to figure out some way to do some sort of hold harmless situation with ADA? Is that what I'm hearing? Because there's either going to be a blended situation with online learning, and there may be some sort of a different view of this where the public schools are sort of held harmless. Is that correct?
So for the 2021 fiscal year, which is the upcoming year, the state will probably help. Will make some adjustments to how the ADA is calculated and try to hold us harmless for that fiscal year 2021. And they're going to fine tune how they calculate all the ADA. But for the next biennium, which is 21-22, 22-23, is the one that we have to be concerned about because, as you mentioned, the economy and the oil, all that is going to impact the next biennium's budget. So we foresee that that there might be some cuts in next biennium.
And so think about this. When we were in 2008, when we went through that recession and we went through budget cuts, there was nothing wrong with our ADA. We maintained the enrollment, but the state came back and said, we're going to cut all the district funds, and our net impact was about $5.8 million. So they kept us whole in the ADA side. They didn't affect that. They just said, you're going to get less funding. And so all the districts got less funding. So we believe, and this is a very conservative budget, but we believe that the 2021, we're going to go right through and we're going to respond to that. What we're planning for is the next biennium, if in fact there's a drastic reduction like there was in 2008, where we lost about $5.8 million in our funding. And so that's the bigger question. Are we going to go into a recession, or is there going to be a reduction, drastic reduction of state agencies in their funding? Because we've seen it before. And keep in mind that the one question that came out of this last legislative session is, will they be able to maintain the same level of funding? Because they put a lot of money into public ed and higher ed. And here we are, just a year later, and now the second year, and we're about to see whether they're going to be able to maintain that level of funding. So we're going to be very careful in moving forward to be very conservative and respond to what's potentially coming forward. But I predict that we will go through another major reduction in our public school funding in the next biennium. It won't happen next year, but it may happen the following 2 years.
So I just want the board to realize that the two things where we have, I guess, it sounds like to me from Dr. Cavazos and Julio's plan here, where we have wiggle room to be conservative here, are the collection rate and the ADA. And it sounds like they've been pretty conservative on both of those so that we can make sure the money's there at the end. But if there's any questions from the board, now's the time in terms to ask that. It was a 96% versus 98%. And you saw the difference of 2% collection rate decrease to be on the conservative side. And then, of course, the conservative number on the ADA. So, but I thought it was excellent presentation, Julio.
I will tell you that right now, all our specialty schools, when we look at all the applications that have come in, we're in the positive of about 280 students that are going to be new to HCISD coming to our specialty schools. And as you can see, that's not reflected in the budget because we don't know the other side of the impact, right? There's other things that could come into play. So we're being very conservative and keeping it at today's year's level for next year. If we come out better, then we're in better shape. But we're going to stay conservative.
So those are some good points, Dr. Gauss, Dr. Perez. I do have some other slides. We are being conservative with our budget approach, but as Dr. Perez mentioned, our fund balance or rainy day fund, if you will, this is a graph of our fund balance over the past 10 years. You can see back in 2010-11, we're about $33.5 million. We dipped down to about $29 million in 13-14. But over the years, we have gradually increased our fund balance to currently about $47.9 million. And again, the 3.9 is restricted, the 4.2 is TRE, and the 39.7 is the unrestricted funds. There's always an opportunity for the board to approve some uses of those unrestricted fund balance, for those one-time costs, right? And we just want to use it for one-time costs. We don't want to use it for recurring costs, as such as salary increases. But this is and so we're happy with that. $47 million fund balance. Our board policy requires us to have a 2-month fund balance, and that's about $30 million requirement to have by board policy. We're a little bit higher than that.
Higher.
So this is our RDA, our average daily attendance, where we have been over the years, pretty much stagnant over the past 10 years, up and down. So this year, was 16,900, and again, we're projecting, to have that as we move forward. This graph shows our revenues by state, local, and federal. Our total state revenues is 74.6%, a little bit higher than last year. And that's due to the House Bill 3 and all the money that the state put in on their part, and they also compress our tax rate. That's with our local values, our local revenues are a little bit lower. These are our property tax rates, that we have over the years, and we're at 121.9 10 years ago, went up to 131.8 when we passed the TRE. This past year, because of the tax compression and lowering our tax rate, we're back down to 121.6. In 2021, it's even going to be a little bit lower as we project that. Maybe possibly 119.6, about 2 pennies less. Still working on those numbers, so that's a good thing. This page is basically what we have in outstanding bonds. So we want to make sure that the board knows our total debt that we have in our debt service. As of the end of last year, about $130.9 million in outstanding debt. We're going to refund these two bonds. It's $56.3 million 2010, and this other 2010, the $20 million. Those are the ones that we're refunding or refinancing, if you will. And hopefully get a better interest rate to reduce our INS tax rate. Working with our financial advisor to try and get that date probably later May. The market has shown favorable numbers on our side, so we're looking to have a good rate of return there. And in conclusion, just a summary page. The average daily attendance about 16,900. A possible reduction to our tax rate about 1.5 to 2 pennies. Increase in property value 5 to 6%. Purchase of new technology $500,000. The GPS tracking system, increase about $300,000. One of the things that I haven't mentioned before is that there are some new stimulus dollars that that we do anticipate in receiving, and this is a one-time infusion of money from the federal government due to the CARES Act that they passed about a month and a half ago. We're looking at $6 to $7 million in additional Title I dollars, and we can use some of those dollars for some technology items. I'm sure, possibly some other equipment that we might need, district wide. So we still don't have a time on when we're going to receive those funds, but probably going to be sometime in the summer. We also need to take into consideration the impact of our charter schools that have into our school district. Again, this budget is built on the responsiveness to the current crisis. So we're responding to that, to the issues that we have currently. Otherwise, this probably be a less conservative budget. We do need to be conservative as we move forward. So we think this is a conservative preliminary budget. And again, we're looking at all vacancies to be reviewed prior to filling. We have to look at the staffing. When staffing is about 80% of our budget, we have to look at staffing as we move forward. Not to answer any questions that any of the board members might have.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Jaimes?
Julia, just a quick question. When we talked about the reimbursement or possible reimbursement due to COVID, do we have an idea what that looks like, or is it too early to tell even what kind of impact that might have?
Yeah, we're keeping track of our expenditures that we have, because of the COVID-19. We've been working with FEMA and attending their webinars, and so we're going to get reimbursed for 75% of the allowable cost. There's some items that we've incurred that they're not going to allow, but I think it's a little bit too early to project out how much money we're going to get back from them. But we're keeping track of that, and then we're submitting those expenditures. But they're going to allow some type of equipment for cleaning supplies and equipment. We're sure they're going to allow some of that, maybe some premium pay as well. So we're keeping track of that, but it's a little bit too early to give you a good number as far as reimbursements that we're going to get.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Javier, did you have?
Yeah, thank you. I think this layout is great, Julio. I think it's very conservative. Let me tell you where I'm a little nervous and a little worried. The comptroller about 2 weeks ago made a statement that they're talking to the tri-agencies, TWC, TEA, Coordinating Board, and asking those agencies to look at cuts. So it's not going to be the next biennium. It could be now or this upcoming year. Hearing that, the next phase is they're going to be trickling it down to everyone else, not just the tri-agencies, but looking at everybody saying, look, we want everybody to look at their budgets, and we want you to be conservative. So I guess my question to you, Julio, and to Dr. Cavazos is, should we, since we're in unprecedented times right now, this budget normally would work perfectly for the last, since 2009, because 2008 we had another crisis. But shouldn't we be looking at this budget and looking at a 5% reduction and doing it that way on our budget, opposed to trying to break it even? Because if the government, because we're in a recession or pretty close to a recession, and it's only been 2 months. I don't see, unless I'm wrong, I don't see this getting any better in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. So there's going to be a domino effect of negative funding coming in from the economy. Gas and oil is hurting. We got double whammy with the oil and gas and with the COVID. So I'm kind of looking at, should we and Julio, you're the expert. You've kept us in great standings forever since I've been on the board. But should we be looking at a budget where it's kind of looking at a 5% reduction rather than a leveling out of what we have?
Yeah, so we're kind of doing that in the form of being conservative with our revenues, right? We could be a little bit less conservative, so we would show maybe another $1 million, $2 million of additional revenues coming in. But because we know that tough times are coming, we're a little bit conservative there. I mean, we're also putting in that all vacancies need to be reviewed prior to being filled. So there's some items that we have in place. Again, when 80% of our budget is in personnel, we really have to look at that. And this is a preliminary budget. We're still reviewing what we can do as we move forward. The state is still coming up with some data. We haven't heard that they're going to cut back some of education dollars, for 2021, but it could happen. So yeah, we do need to be conservative, and we think we're being conservative with our revenue projections. But again, this is our first preliminary budget. We'll continue to study that as we move forward.
Mr. De Leon, that's a very good point, because right now what we're looking at is, if it were to be, okay, what does it look like for 5%? We've been in this situation before. Vehicle replacements would not take place. Hiring of the security guards would not take place. There's some things that we would automatically stop doing. Right now, we have those in the budget at a very limited. So we're already building to that. But I can tell you that your concern is so noted, because that is exactly what we saw forecast right before the economic crisis in 2008. We saw that forecast that we're going to fall off the cliff. So we're doing that, and as you can tell, we could add another couple of $1 million there in revenue, but we're not certain that that's the smart thing to do. That's why we have collection rates low, we have ADA low. Even though we're signaled that we're going to increase in enrollment in our specialty schools, we showed no increase. We're just showing nothing. Now, if we end up better, that's a great thing. And also looking at our one-time expenditures and doing that responsibly. But at the end of the day, we're reviewing each one of those areas and the vacancy list and what is justifying every position. Because you're right. I predict that those times will come faster than we're predicting. That it won't be the next biennium necessarily.
Yeah. So just for example, 5% of our current budget of about $180 million is about $7.5 million, or $8 million. So it's a sizable amount. We did take a hit back in 2010 when there was those reductions, and there was about $5.3 million reduction for that year that we had to make adjustments, to be able to balance our budget, at that point in time. We're still studying this budget and we're being conservative. But as Dr. Cavazos mentioned, there's some items that we can take out as we move forward, or not hire. For example, the security guards. We don't need to bring them day one. We can see how the economy is, and maybe maybe bring him on board in January. That may be an option.
Well, and the other thing, if you notice on his summary page, the $6 or $7 million that we're expecting out of Title I as part of the CARES Act is not built into this budget, right? So we're not even counting on that $6 or $7 million, and so that may pay for some of the things that we have in our budget, which will kind of balance itself out.
Yeah, and kind of having on that budget, if we could put like a little asterisk where that we're doing that already, like 5%, 3%, it kind of, I think it would give everybody peace of mind because we're one step ahead of everybody else. Because they may not ask for it, but we're ready for it.
So I think those are great points to make sure there's a footnote there so that people know that we're not just trying to balance a budget like normal. We are being very conservative, and we are taking into account the possibility of constrictions, we've been discussing that are the conversations out there with state agencies that may again affect the public schools. But I will just make sure that we remind, and I know the board will agree on this, that we've always been this way. This board has always been this way. The way we look at the TRE and not spending on recurring expenditures, I would ask that we treat that CARES money in much the same way, that we're not using it to spend on anything that's a recurring expenditure. So I think if we do that, I think we'll be very smart managing our budget. So. But I think it's a great budget considering all of the complications and things that are going into it right now. And I think if we can capture some of those footnotes so that people can see that there is a huge amount of constriction already occurring in our budget to account for some of these things because of the, number one, the double hit of the pandemic and the sales tax decrease and the hit on the tax revenue because of economic times, but also on the broader situation with the Texas legislature and what the oil impact is going to have on that. So, in any event,
Dr. Pettis?
Yes, Dr. Reitinger, please.
Just one minor. This is not. I don't anticipate that this would be a large expenditure, but just something to think about as we go forward. One of the factors that will be so important in making sure that our workforce is healthy is being able to do COVID-19 antibody testing at some sort of regular interval. And those costs, I'm not clear about how those will really play out. Some of it may be covered by the insurance. Some of it we may have to have additional costs on that. But the point is just to investigate that a little bit more and see how that plays out in the budget.
Good point.
I have a question too, Dr. Pettis.
Yes, please, Ms. Farley.
I was wondering if Julio could address the impact of our thinking from the previous presentation in terms of the fact that it appears that we are going into a blended learning pattern, and the fact is that not being blended but being totally at home did impact the budget in a positive way, and so the numbers could very well be different. We haven't talked about the cost of going into blended, whether that's going to be an upfront significant cost, and then that will be balanced out by being less later. I mean, I'm wondering at what point do we begin to think about the budgetary impact of changing how we are doing things, particularly if we're going to be changing them soon.
So I can tell you, that because we went to virtual learning here the last month and a half, we realized some savings. For example, utility costs. I mean, the campuses aren't being open, so there's some savings there. The transportation of the students aren't, going to any of the extracurricular events. There's some savings there. Instructional supplies that we normally buy, for the campuses to use on campus, we've saved some monies there. As we move forward, there's going to be some new costs, but there will be some of those costs offset with some expenses that we're not going to have because of that, blended learning or that virtual learning, because students are being at home.
But at some point, we'll have to put the numbers to that, correct? I mean,
Absolutely.
we plan to do that in this budget process, or do we plan to do that looking backward?
I think as we move forward, we need to keep that in mind. Whether we anticipate that we're going to close, we need to have something that is going to identify those new costs and of course any type of potential savings. So
that'd be interesting. Thank you.
I will say, Mr. Ray and Dr. Perez, on that note, with the anticipated savings, of course, the moving to virtual schools, there was some added burden. So we talk about the savings, but there was an added burden and an added expectation on our teaching staff, right? And so just the pivot of moving to an online virtual platform, they weren't at times they weren't just educating the student, they were educating the parents. And so I have asked Julio to look at identifying a one-time amount that we can give to the teachers because of the expediency of moving to an offline platform. Keep in mind that while there were some savings because we went to virtual, somebody bared some of that heavy lifting. And the heavy lifting, I believe, was first, and we've recognized that before, are those that are closest to the children, and that's your teachers. And so while some of us were trying to figure everything out, they had children staring at them thinking they already figured it out, right? And so we're proposing probably $300 one-time stipend or adjustment for all the teachers, because this was a very heavy lifting, and it was mostly felt at the teacher level. And I think you all would agree. I've had this conversation a couple of times, and I think a couple of you have already brought it up. But I think it's while the savings are there, I think that there's a value to reinvesting some of that savings on what we expected of our staff. Keep in mind that those that did curbside services, we did premium pay for them, and so we've adjusted some there, but the teachers weren't. And so I would like to just move forward with that, knowing that they were the ones that were right there in front of the kids, and the kids were staring at them for all the answers, and sometimes the teachers didn't have those answers but did an exceptional job. So that's one of the things that I think we can responsibly reinvest in.
Absolutely.
Great idea.
Any other comments on the budget for questions for Dr. Cavazos or for Julio? I think you all have done a remarkable job. I know it's going to be a moving target. Can you please quickly remind the board on how is it going to look in terms of the next, how many more of these workshops are we going to have? And then number one, number two is when do we approve the tax rate? And then number three, when do we adopt the budget?
So I'll start, and then Julio can jump in. We'll have one. We're proposing to have a special board meeting budget workshop after Transforming Teaching and Learning in the June Transforming Teaching and Learning Committee meeting, and then I'll let Julio jump in on adoption and tax rate adoption as well.
So we'll have at least maybe one or two additional budget workshops before we have our public hearing in late June. So when we have the public hearing, after that we have a meeting for the board to adopt the budget, which is going to be before June 30th. So it'll be that week. The tax rate, and we're going to propose a tax rate, with this budget, but CEA is going to, send us a new compression amount, probably mid-June, early to mid-June, that we'll use that plus whatever savings we have from the refunding of the bonds. So the tax rate doesn't need to be approved by June 30th. It actually needs to be approved by September. So we'll propose that, but we'll propose a tax rate on our budget public hearing, and then hopefully that'll be the rate that the board adopts, in August or September.
Thank you very much, and again, great job to you guys. Okay, well, with that, I think we'll adjourn to close our executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code and the Open Meetings Act to discuss employment of teachers and other professional staff. So you'll let us know when we're in executive session, Doc?
Yeah.
Are we good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to reconvene into open session the HCIC Board of Trustees meeting into open session for action and matters discussed in executive session. The time is now 7:27 p.m. We have one item, consider employment of teachers and other professional staff. How does the board wish to proceed?
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve the employment of staff as presented by administration in executive session.
I second the motion.
Motion, Mr. Jaime, second by Ms. Fleury. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. And with that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very, very much.